Welcome to the teen version of Boyfriends and Girlfriends. Now, this topic is huge for teenagers, and it can feel like we are in the midst of it a lot as parents of teenagers. And so I just wanted to create space to talk about it. I'm just going to manage your expectations. I will not answer every question that you have in your heart about this, but I can try. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you have a scenario, if you have a worry, if you disagree with me and want to say so, feel free. Type it in. I'd love to engage with you on whatever you want me to talk about tonight. As usual, I don't want to tell you what to think, but I would like to throw in some tools and suggestions for you to begin to think about around this subject. And for some of the reasons is we picked this topic not because I'm a genius at it, but because often we just don't talk about it. And as parents, as Christian parents who want to help our kids navigate life with God, this can be a sort of big hole in our concept. And so I wanted us to create space to talk about it so that we can feel comfortable and confident to parent this bit of our kids as well as everything else. And so I guess the first question that I have is that there are 1,000 million, maybe an exaggeration. There are a lot of different theories about in parenting books and in theory about what is useful for kids. Should they be allowed to date? Should they not be allowed to date? Is it the Christian thing to allow them to date? And there are people all on the spectrum of, sure, feel free to let your child date from whenever they want and walk alongside with them, to people who are like, dating is for marriage and therefore you shouldn't be willing to date until you're ready to get married. And then you have my dad, who told me very blatantly I couldn't date till I was 30. So it's a whole scheme, and I'm not here to tell you what is right and what is wrong. What I want to do is give you some thoughts around it so that you can help develop your own view of what is right for you and your kids. Because while there's loads of theories out there, you are the parent of your kids, and you know them better than anybody else. So this is really to just help you think through this process. And so one of the things that I find helpful to consider is what is your expectation and understanding of dating? Because you would be surprised at how many of us really haven't thought it through. I find you don't really know what you think until you have to explain it to your kid, and then you realize how little you've actually thought about this stuff. And so what is your actual expectation and understanding of dating? What is dating for? Because if you feel like you don't quite have a handle on what you think dating is for, what the purpose of dating is, then you'll always feel off-footed, because you're going to be like, I have a boyfriend, and you're like, I don't know how to respond to that. And so you'll feel quite powerless in the process. But if you feel like, okay, this is in my heart, this is my approach to dating, I am just going to walk alongside them and ask them questions, or actually I feel like I need to create some space for my child around it, because I feel like I don't want my child to think about those kind of exclusive relationships until they get older. Having a sort of thought process of a starting point allows you to engage in a conversation, where if you feel like you don't have a starting point, then your child and the culture around them dictates what happens rather than you. And so have a think about, for some kids, and this also depends on your kids, there are some kids who sort of float along life, and you're like, okay, I trust that we're a surfing the waves family. We're gonna deal with it as it comes up. There are other families and other kids who really thrive in structure, and so those children are the ones who you think, okay, they could perhaps get too serious. They're the ones who will probably be manipulated in relationship. And so sometimes we as parents need to give boundaries to help our kids feel safe within that. And so some parents are like, okay, I don't want you to get an exclusive relationship until you're 16. Feel free to, be in groups and to do those things. But I think at 16 is when we can start having that. And so therefore your 15-year-old can be like, I'm sorry, I can't date. My dad said no. Whatever you think is helpful, think about what's useful for you and your kid and what your approach is. What is dating for? And what is your expectation and understanding of dating? Because then you can have conversations. Then you can say, it concerns me because I see the girls out there, and I think it's really important that when you're ready to step into a relationship like a boyfriend or girlfriend, that you know the deep responsibility that comes with that, and I want to talk to you about that. And when you feel ready to take on the responsibility of taking care of another person's heart, then then that's something you can choose. But I just want to make sure you know what that comes with. And so good conversations come out of knowing what you think. And so sometimes for some of us, the first step in handling the boyfriend-girlfriend thing is really just considering what you think, and what permissions you then want to give around that. But a big question I think is really important, particularly for teenagers, to get them talking, is to begin to ask good questions. Good questions are really, really important. Like when their friends begin dating and when the stories start going around, to then asking, why are they dating? They're 12. What is dating about? What does it mean? What are the expectations? When you have a boyfriend, what does that mean? What do you have to do? And begin to just ask curious questions. I talk a lot with parents of teenagers about curious questions. Teenagers are really, their antennas are up for control. And so as soon as you start asking questions, they're like, here comes an unsolicited opinion. And sometimes they want to shut down that sort of, I didn't ask your opinion, and you're probably going to tell me no, so I'm going to shut it down. And so curious questions is a really useful tool to have with young people. Because what you're saying is, my primary experience right now is I want to understand. I just want you to teach me about your life so that I understand you and I understand your friends. Because I'm not a teenager right now. So explain to me what it's like and what are the pressures that you have. What is it? Are there lots of people dating at school? Is it hard to say no to dating? Are you tempted to date? Because what is that like? And how do you handle it when people are together? And do you want to date? And all of those questions of genuinely wanting to understand without instantly giving your opinion is a really important tool for parenting a teenager. Because if you don't understand their approach and if they don't feel understood, then you're on opposite ends of behavior management, where if you're understanding their heart and saying, I want to walk alongside of you and help you on this journey, then they're going to open up more if they feel like it's not going to be judged and responded to immediately. So asking open-ended questions with deliberately not trying to take it somewhere is a really, really important tool, particularly when you talk about this. And it's okay to say things like, if you ever like a guy, I would just ask that you make sure it's somebody that will take care of your heart. Because in a relationship, this is what I want for you. I want someone who's going to always speak life into you and to not tear you down with his words. I want someone who will really value those bits of you that are valuable, like your heart and your mind and your humor and things. And so when you're asking about people, you're asking about, are you picking people to have in your life that value you the way you deserve? Not just, are they cute? And I think sometimes we go quickly when we talk about boyfriends and girlfriends to, ooh, are they cute and who do you like? And it becomes quite frivolous and free. And actually, this whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing is kind of serious, because you're giving people access to bits of you that are very, very precious, like your humor and your vulnerability when you're sad. And I want to make sure that whoever's going to step into that role is somebody who is worthy of the wonderfulness of you. And that's for guys and girls. Are they kind to you? Do they respect you? And also almost having conversations about the stuff they need equipping in. Young people often get into problems in the boyfriend-girlfriend concept because they engage in situations that they never thought about ahead of time. And so being able to frame for them, I remember in my first, relationship, one opportunity that came up was they got in a fight with my best friend and expected me to back him up rather than back my friend up. But I had no idea what to do. And I found that really, really tricky. What would you do in that circumstance? And begin to sort of create scenarios to have conversations about, so that they can begin to become equipped for the complexity of what that means. And you have endless examples from your life and endless examples from their life. And so as their friends get into relationships, you say, oh, that's tricky. And I remember that. And it's hard to be godly in relationship with all these things. Movies are also really helpful for this. When you're watching something like Jane Austen's Emma is a great movie that is about meddling in other people's relationships and what you think. And they're watching on television loads of movies and things that enable you to talk about what good relationships are and what you expect and why you do or are not comfortable with them having it now, because you have all these relationships to look into, almost to have windows into, to say, this is what I think is godly, and I think this is what is right, and this is what I want for you, this is what I don't want for you, to talk about how to feel empowered and when do you walk out and all of those things. So whether or not you're letting them try it now, having a conversation about what they're looking for and how to be equipped for it is really, really, really important. This framing ahead of time comes in particularly often when they're older too. I remember my mom talking about, when I was 5, she talked about, girls are going to say, if you don't do this, then I'm not your friend anymore. So the first time someone said it, I knew what to say. But she also said, if one day, and it was the most awkward conversation of my life, said one day a guy may say, if you don't have sex with me, then we're going to break up. And that's him trying to manipulate you. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe my mom's saying this. But I'll tell you what, the first time a guy said that to me, I laughed in his face, because I thought, you know what? This is the second time I've heard those words. The first time I heard those words was from my mom. And I laughed at him because I instantly thought, oh, he's trying to manipulate me. Nope. So I broke up with him immediately. And I found it hilarious that this guy said exactly what my mom would say. But had she not equipped me for that moment, I could have been shocked and stunned. And this concept of going ahead and saying, you know what, in relationships, people try to manipulate you, or people want to be with you so much that it ends up being isolating from others. And that's really tough. It's a tough thing to negotiate. And this is how I do it. This is how I do it. And sort of seeing ahead and giving them equipping for that enables them to begin to learn what kind of relationship they want, what it looks like to have a relationship. So whether you say you can't date till you're 16, or whether you say, I'm just going to walk alongside of you, the conversations you're having are about what makes a healthy and good relationship, of framing what other people's relationships are and what's valuable in them and what isn't, of windows into your own life and how God fit into all of that. Whether you're dating someone who knows God or doesn't know God, and what that was like in your circumstance, all of that stuff that's feeding them. Often we take steps back when they become teenagers, and actually to take steps forward and to be a part of that romance feeding that is going on with the kids. They begin to, as teenagers, grasp onto these romance stories. And those romance stories tell them lies about how romances are about what you look like, and power and value is found in beauty. And I know we've done another one about that, but engage with this romance concept of stories. Surround them with real romance stories of Christian couples who found each other through serving God or by worshiping, or all of the stuff of real romance, so that they're not tricked by the world's concept of romance. A question has come up about how do you help teens set appropriate boundaries when they are dating, especially when they don't want to talk about their relationship with me. Yes, that happens. The real strength of teenage parenting often is in windows into other people's lives that aren't you, and also mistakes you make, stories that you have. And so if they don't want to talk about their relationship with you, that's okay. What you can do is, with permission of your friends, often you can talk about your friends. And so, if you have friends who are dating, to talk about how, it's really frustrating because you have a friend and she didn't want to, she just had someone who was constantly pressuring her to go out when she wanted to stay in, and he wanted to kiss her when she didn't want to make out, and all of this stuff. And it's really frustrating because she's feeling a bit powerless, and she's feeling like she hasn't really thought it through ahead of time. So when it comes up, then she has to decide really quickly, and she feels really, disempowered. The advice I gave her was this. Do you think that was wise advice? And you have these outside friendships that you can help your kid give you advice on what to suggest, or you can talk about that person's relationship, knowing that you think, actually, it's important that my kid thinks about boundaries. So what I can do is discuss a different one. It could be a movie you want, or it could be a story of one time you were dating and you didn't set boundaries and you did stuff you didn't want to do. I know you don't want to talk about it, and that's okay. But I just wanted to let you know that you're a really powerful person, and I trust you. I've seen you say no to lots of different things, and I just want to know that you know that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to value your opinion over somebody else's opinion, because you are this whole wonderful person that I trust, and sometimes people don't know what the boundaries are until you tell them. And we don't have to discuss it. You don't have to tell me about it. And I know you're going to roll your eyes at me, but I just want you to know that your voice is powerful and strong and should be listened to. And if you ever want to talk about it, if you're ever not sure what to say, then I'm here to help you figure it out. But I also trust you. But I find in my life, I wish I had decided those things. And I know you're smarter than me, so you probably have already. But if you haven't, I just wanted to say, maybe you should try, because my friend is really struggling. And so sometimes it's about using those other examples, or using movies, or letting them know that you're still struggling with this. Sometimes also you can talk about things like work relationships. It doesn't have to be boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. If you're talking about setting boundaries, it's okay to begin to talk about how I feel like I'm going on this whole boundaries journey myself at work, and I'm learning this. And so tell stories at the dinner table, and talk about how you tried to say no, and then you just found yourself doing what you were doing before because, I don't know, you want that person to like you. And, okay, you're going to go back and read the boundaries book. And just let them know that boundaries is a thing, that is a lifetime thing, and it may be worth them thinking about it too, alongside you. Another question came up. My husband and I have been struggling in our own relationship recently, and I'm worried that's having an effect on our kids, and they're not seeing a great marriage at home. Thank you so much for that question. That is a question that is a really important question to have. For me, I never think that being perfect is the best way to do things, because none of us are perfect, whether you're struggling in your marriage, whether you're struggling with your mental health, whether it's you're struggling, we're all struggling in some way. And the pressure to be perfect and to say this is the perfection that you're headed for can be overwhelming. And so when you're sort of saying, I'm the perfect one, head towards me, be perfect like me, one, that's often not something that appeals to teenagers. But two, it's almost impossible to maintain. But what you can have integrity about and help with is your reflections on it and what you want to do. And so if you and your husband are struggling, figuring out how to explain it and talk about it in a way that doesn't dump on the kids, but also lets them see your values for a relationship. And so if you say, I'm sorry, we're struggling, your dad and I are struggling, and because I think I'm feeling lonely, and we're trying to figure it out, and we're trying one way, and then that doesn't work, and then sometimes I let my heart be sad about it, or I sometimes feel misunderstood. And so what you're seeing are two people who really value each other, trying to figure out what it looks like to be together. And that is something that you'll have for your whole life, because relationships aren't easy. Relationships aren't easy because in an ideal world, you'd have two perfect people who never made mistakes and who never had conflicting values, who just get to skip happily alongside each other. And all relationships are work, and sometimes they're better than others. And right now, as you know, it's not one of the perfect times, but what we're doing is we're trying to figure it out. And I'm trying to keep my heart clean, and I'm trying to be gracious and kind while also speak what I need. And some things you'll see and some things you won't. But I just want you to know that that we're working on it, and it's not perfect. And just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's not valuable. And so you don't have to give the details, and he did this and I did this and I did this and I think I'm right, and or to go cry on their bed and make them comfort you. But there's something about when they see it, to be able to frame it in the great thing that says I want to have a great marriage, and to me I think that means that. And right now, because we're both working on it, it's not as perfect as we want it to be, but it's in the middle, and you will be in the middle a lot in your life. And so thank you for your grace and your peace while we figure it out. Because even by being honest now, you are showing that vulnerability of it. And I appreciate that, and your kids will appreciate that. It's better than putting on a smile and saying it's all going to be fine, because that makes them feel insecure. When you let them know what they're looking at, then they're seeing two people who are working on it rather than two people who are pretending. Another question came in. My daughter seems to have bought into the whole "I need to look beautiful to be picked by a boy" thing, and is really worried about her appearance and won't believe me that inner beauty is more important than what they look like on the outside. Yes, there is we did a whole Facebook Live on beauty and manliness that on Facebook you'll be able to go find on the videos tab. If you go on Parenting for Faith, the page you're on now, if you go on videos, there's a whole session on beauty and manliness. But I'll just speak a little bit to it now, then you might want to go there. And then there's a whole chapter on it in this book, Parenting Children for Life of Faith, if you wanted to look at that. I completely understand. It's an overwhelming narrative that the world screams at our children. And I think what I found really useful in thinking about this beauty thing is that it's not really about appearance. What our kids have been taught is their beauty is the doorway to everything they want. So they want to be chosen, to be valued, to be loved, to be special to someone, to be admired. And the main way that the world has told them that they get that is through the doorway of beauty and appearance. So we can say, it's also your inner beauty, but they're like, yes, but I won't even get through the door unless I do that. And a lot of the movies they're watching says that. And a lot of the narratives they get are the sort of love at first sight and the beautiful people and wanting women and that sort of sense of the visual attractiveness is what gets you valued. And that is a very powerful narrative that is really overwhelming. And so some of the things that are really helpful to talk about is to stop talking about the concept of beauty altogether. And in the other video, I give you lots of different tools about that. But one of that is to begin to praise your daughter specifically for what she brings, her funniness and her joy, and how kind and helpful she is, and how impactful she is on other people's lives. So that it's not just beauty is important, you're beautiful too, no, I promise, but you're beautiful on the inside, and then we're all still talking about beauty, when actually she is a funny, powerful, engaging, kind person who changes people's lives, and that is deeply, deeply attractive. And that is her just whole being. And sometimes our teenagers need that specific kind of praise. Another thing she may need are alternative romance narratives. Invite people over whenever you have anybody over to your house, particularly people who don't look like the beauty standard of, perfection. Because you know what? Most people who have boyfriends and girlfriends that are married aren't the most beautiful people in the world. The most beautiful people in the world are a very tiny sliver amount. Everybody else still manages to find love. And so to have those people over and to talk about the narratives, and you know what? Most people's love stories are not. And I saw them across the way, and I thought they were absolutely beautiful, and then I just had to take her out on the date. Most people's stories are, she was just made me laugh all the time at work, and I just wanted to be around her all the time, and she was hilarious. And then we went out and we talked about the same things all the time. And most people's stories are these beautiful inner beauty stories of people valuing each other. And what happens sometimes is our teenagers only hear the media stories of falling in love. They only see the rom-coms, they only see the television programs, and they have a dearth of the romance stories of real people. And so sometimes we just need to up those stories and then praise all of those qualities that we see in our kid. And so rather than try to compete with a label and say, yes, you are beautiful and beauty is important, we say, you know what, actually there is so much about you. There's so much about you. And the person who picks you, not even the person who picks you, the person who is drawn to the wonderfulness of you will be someone who is worthy of the wonderfulness of you. And in the meantime, if you are looking at people who are only looking at people's outsides, that is probably a problem. You want the people who are overwhelmed with the absolute depth of the wonderfulness of you. because you are wonderful. And listen to all of these stories of all these people finding each other, and the depth of joy they find in each other when they're not so focused on the wrapping. And that's really significant. It's also really significant to look at how you're discussing beauty in your family and what we praise. And so if you're busy praising her beauty, then she's going to become more focused on that and those things. So you know your kid better. There are lots of different first steps. I'd suggest you watch that Facebook video to find some next steps, and maybe the book. And maybe that'll help pick one or two things to just see if that is. It's almost like a diagnostic tool to sort of see where's the thing. And you might want to ask your kid questions like, if you looked exactly the way you wanted to look, what would happen next? Or if you could change all those things about you that you're worried about, or if you could do your makeup perfectly, how would life be different? Because that might give you... Ask those curious questions, because that might help you find out what's at the bottom of that. Is it because they're lonely? Is it because everybody they know is dating and they don't want to be left out? Is that because they feel powerless and unseen? Is it because they feel, all of those things might be helpful if you ask those questions to get started. Understanding your kids sort of is the beginning step to knowing what the next step is. I don't see any other questions popping up. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to pray for you and then go. Next month, we are doing Making Space for Doubt. In our kids' spiritual lives, they will go through seasons of doubt. And how do we handle their seasons of doubt? How do we make space for those seasons of doubt? How do we engage with it so that we can help them on their journey of life with God? Yes, so let me pray for you. God, I thank you so much for all of the families represented here and all those who will watch the video in the future. God, I thank you that you hold our kids in your hand. God, this whole issue of boyfriends and girlfriends and beauty is so precious, and it affects our kids so much sometimes. And God, I pray that you would just pour your wisdom upon these parents, that you would help them see their children deeply beyond what comes out of their kids' mouths, but based on the years and years and years they've spent with their children. They know their kids, and I pray that you would make them wise, that you would whisper in their ears about their kids, that they may parent wisely and boldly and well, and that they may walk through this season of life with their kids as in every other season. I pray that you would give them grace in the eyes of their children, that their children would speak to them and tell them things, and that you would guard each one of these parents' mouths, that they may speak that life and truth and your words into their kids. I pray that you bless their relationship, and I thank you that you've placed them in their children's lives. In Jesus' name, amen. So I will see you next month for Making Space for Doubt. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.